As you know, you're going to be going into chapter 1, which is the What is Strategic Communication chapter. And in here, you're going to find a lot of interesting information. And I'm going to explain to you just briefly how this all ties into the course and into the project. So the first thing is, what is strategic communication? Now, as you'll see in the book and as I'm about to explain, that it looks at strategy as being the big picture and then having strategic tactics or concrete actions that you can implement. So that would be specifically how you're going to get that communication across, what are your considerations, and other things of that nature. When you're thinking about strategic communication, it involves several different aspects. And these are the things that you're going to be analyzing so that you can actually come up with a strategic communications plan. So the first thing is you have to determine the format. So in which way do you want to create your strategic communication plan or the communication that you want to get across to your audience strategically? Do you want it to be in a form of a press conference, a telephone call, an email, face-to-face conversations? So those are some of the considerations. The next thing is you have to anticipate your desired outcome. So in order to be a strategic communicator, you want to forecast what your audience or how your audience is interested in returning in regard to the outcome, as well as you need to establish your credibility as the speaker or as a sender, depending upon if your strategic message is going to be in writing or if it's going to be communicated orally. The fourth thing is making sure that you understand and analyze your target audience. So what do they know in advance? What are some of their preconceptions or preconceived notions? Think about those different things before developing your strategic communication plan. The next thing is make sure that you think of the main points in your message so that you get what they call AIDA, which is getting their attention, keeping their interest, instilling a desire, and then requiring some form of an action. And then finally is the last one, which is respecting cultural norms, preferences, and attitudes. And in this course, you're going to be completing strategic communications plans worksheets that look similar to this. And you'll be analyzing a case study. You'll be looking at how you can develop a strategic communication plan with those 6 elements that we just talked about in the previous slide. So as I mentioned in the original welcome video, that being strategic is what differentiates or will differentiate you from a manager to a true leader. And you do that by looking at the big picture. So you're evaluating and even analyzing and synthesizing and taking all the different pieces of what goes into a good communications plan and applying it to the big picture. As I mentioned, there are going to be leadership qualities that you're going to be incorporating into your strategic business plans. You're going to be identifying your strengths and your weaknesses as a leader and how you can address those areas of strength and weakness through reflection and thinking about communication and a strategic communication plan. The difference that there is between managers and leaders is that managers tend to provide order and consistency. They go through those functions of management like budgeting, planning, organizing, controlling, problem solving, directing, whereas leaders actually provide change and movement. Leaders tend to establish direction, they align people, they motivate, they inspire. So those are the things that you're going to want to think about in your communication and being a strategic communicator in the process. Another difference between management or management communication and corporate communication is that management communication is needed to effectively interact with others in order to manage and influence groups. Corporate communication, on the other hand, is a more broader concept or term, which is what organizations will do to reach out to their broader community or to reach out to their publics and stakeholders. Now, as I mentioned, The purposes of business communication is to inform, to persuade, to convey goodwill, as well as to establish credibility. So this chapter really points out those different elements, and in upcoming chapters they will also mention these 4 important facts. But the most important of those 4 important facts is the idea of being persuasive. And in order to be persuasive, you have to have AIDA. That is, you need to get your audience's attention, you need to obtain their interest, you need to create or instill a desire, and then you need to encourage action. And in this way, you're trying to be as persuasive as possible in your strategic communication plan. So now there are different steps to persuasion that they talk about in chapter 1, and just in general, and I want to remind you of these different points as you go through the chapter and you look at the notes that are in the following area of this module. But in order to be considered persuasive, you have to be credible. If you're not credible, no one's going to want to listen to your message. No one's going to want to hear what you have to say or read what you have to write. You really have to make sure that you have that credibility. The next thing is you have to make sure that you frame your message based on common ground. If you can relate to your audience, that's going to make them be more interested in what you have to say. It'll make them feel as if they have some kind of a connection. So establishing common ground is imperative to be persuasive. The next thing is you have to provide evidence. If you make a statement, you have to provide evidence as to why that statement is grounded and makes sense. So if you say that your product is the best product on the market because of this, you have to go further and provide evidence. It could be maybe what customers are saying, like testimonials. It might be an article that supports what you're stating. It could be a bunch of different factors, statistics, analogies, but you need to provide evidence to back up what you say in order to be persuasive. And last but not least, you have to connect emotionally. That idea of conveying goodwill. If you connect emotionally to your audience through your message, whether it be in writing or orally, you're going to find that people are more able to be persuaded into your way of thinking, so that you can do the AIDA and get their attention, and also be able to get that interest, desire, and action. So in this course, as mentioned in chapter 1, we're going to be looking at some case studies. We're going to be looking at specific case studies starting in week 3, because next week is our spring break. But you're going to be analyzing a case study, looking for key issues, causes, looking at the stakeholders. You're going to be thinking about different solutions, a list of possible solutions based on analysis. You're also going to be thinking about recommendations. What solutions will best get the best results or achieve what you want to achieve? And then from there, you're going to take those recommendations, because there'll be recommendations related to communication, and put them into a strategic communication plan, which are those 6 steps that I mentioned in previous slides. So that's how we're going to take everything and put it together. So we're going to be doing that. And actually our first case study is found in chapter 1. So if you take a look at the case study at the back of the book, that will get you started and get you thinking about the case study that you're actually going to be tackling in week 3. The case study analysis worksheet that you're going to be using has these 5 steps. These are the steps that you want to think about, and I'll give more directions in chapter or in week 3. But you're going to define the case. You're going to write a problem statement. What is this case all about? You're going to consider relevant information with underlying assumptions. So what can you assume based on the facts that are presented? The other thing is you're going to list possible solutions to the problem. So you're going to make sure that you think about every possible solution, brainstorm, even ideas that seem crazy and off the wall, you're going to include those. 4 is select a solution and then prepare to defend it. So once you have these lists of solutions, you're going to find one, you're going to defend it, why that would be the best possible way of doing it. And again, these are reflective, so even if it seems obvious, you want to have statements to defend why you feel that this is the best solution. And then last but not least is you're going to decide how to implement the solution. And typically when you're looking at a case study, the way we're going to be looking at case studies, you're going to find and determine ways that the case, what the case is about. You're going to be communicating and having a strategic communication plan. So if it means that maybe a president of an organization should hold a press conference or send out an email or meet with their employees face-to-face in individualized meetings, whatever it might be, how you feel the solution would best be solved, you'll then turn it into a strategic communication plan that we discussed before. So as you'll see in the upcoming chapters, right now we're talking about what is strategic communication, and then the next chapter is going to focus on the foundations of communication, and then the following chapters 3, 4, and 5 are actually taking steps in the strategic communication process. So that's why there's so much reading this first week, so you get the foundation, and then you can actually see the whole process of strategic communication.